Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and friends, good evening from Winnipeg and good morning in the Southeast Asian part of the world. We welcome all of you on the 18th episode of our ongoing webinar series titled Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar. On behalf of the Institute, I thank you for joining us today for a conversation that is both urgent and deeply consequential, i.e., the status of democracy in Myanmar amidst an ongoing humanitarian and human rights crisis. Before I begin, let me do the treaty recognition. The Institute is based on the original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homelands of Métis Nation. We all are treaty people here in Winnipeg, and we are all working together in the true spirit of truth and reconciliation. The audience, since the military coup of February 2021, Myanmar has been gripped by political instability, violence, and a profound crisis of governance. What began as a swift seizure of power by the Tatmadaw has turned into a protracted conflict, displacing millions, straining regional security, and dismantling fragile democratic institutions in the country. Civil society actors, ethnic armed organizations, and pro democracy movements continue to resist, but the cost has been staggering in terms of lives lost, communities uprooted, and freedoms curtailed. As we gather today, Myanmar stands at yet another crossroads. The military regime continues to signal its intention to hold election, though under conditions that raise serious questions about legitimacy and inclusiveness. Meanwhile, the humanitarian catastrophe deepens. Over 2 million people have been internally displaced, thousands remain imprisoned for political dissent, and basic rights are denied on a daily basis. The crisis is no longer only Myanmar's. It reverberates across South and Southeast Asia, demanding international solidarity, innovative policy responses, and above all, sustained commitment to peace and justice. The audience. It is in this complex landscape that today's discussion situates itself. Our theme, Status of Democracy in Myanmar, Navigating a Protracted Humanitarian and Human Rights Crisis, asks us to critically assess where democracy stands in Myanmar today, what the prospects are for an inclusive political future, and how the humanitarian and human rights dimensions shape the trajectory of peace. This episode continues our project's mission to connect practitioners, scholars, and community voices in order to imagine realistic pathways toward reconciliation and lasting peace. I invite all of you to listen, question, and contribute as we reflect together on how Myanmar's story is unfolding and what role the international community can play in supporting a just and democratic outcome. With this, let's begin today's session. The audience, we are deeply proud to have collaborated with our collaborator in Southeast Asia, CRRIC, Southeast Asian Network for Human Rights and Peace Studies. And today we are going to deal with this webinar, duly held by our collaborator Joel from the other side. And the way we have planned today is that I will hand over to Joel, and then he will introduce our esteemed panelists. And after our panelists speak uninterrupted for about 10 minutes each, then we'll start our question and answer session. And I will start with the first segment, and Mr. Joel will take over the next. And then we'll have an open session. Let me also take this privilege to introduce Joel Mark Baisa Barredo, and he himself considers a Southeast Asian queer feminist academic activist and is an Obama Foundation leader for Asia Pacific of 2022. Joel pursued an international master's degree in human rights in the Institute of Human Rights and Peace Studies at Mahidol University, Thailand, and is currently program advisor for the Southeast Asian Human Rights and Peace Studies Network, in short, CHRN. Joel currently teaches with the Department of International Studies, Miriam College at Philippines. He served as executive director of SHAPE SEA, Southeast Asia, and co founded the ASEAN Youth Forum, a regional movement focusing on the promotion and protection of youth rights and fundamental freedoms in Southeast Asia. So, as you understand, we have full house today, and we are also very honored to have with us our founding advisor, David Terrell Newman, and our core project member, Dr. Ernest Thiessen. And also, we are very happy to have with us Mr. Anil Changra from Singapore Rotary Club. He is with us today, and I hope he will add value by question in the question and answer session. So, without further ado, let me seek help from Joel to kindly introduce the panelists and also start the second part, which is the presentation of esteemed panelists. Joel, go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kauser, and our esteemed colleagues in this room, and also most especially our friends and allies who are joining us both on YouTube, on Facebook. On behalf of the 30 institutional members of the Southeast Asian Human Rights and Peace Studies Network, we are very honored to conduct the very first, the inaugural partnership webinar between the Conflict Resolution Research Institute and Resilience Institute Canada and the Southeast Asian Human Rights and Peace Studies Network. To just give you also a background on the partnership that we have just recently signed on to. It is based, of course, on the spirit of solidarity across borders, believing that if there's no peace, if there's no democracy in Myanmar, there won't be lasting peace in Southeast Asia and beyond. We have seen, and this is why the partnership was easily established, because we have seen an alignment of values and also of our commitment to human rights, conflict transformation, and peace in Myanmar and in Southeast Asia. Our partnership will last for 4 years, starting in August 2025, based on the flagship initiative started by CRRIC, the Charting a Lasting Peace in Myanmar program, which fosters sustainable peace through evidence-based research, inclusive dialogue, and regional cooperation. In the coming 4 years, we will be working together on policy research and advocacy. We will co-write and co-publish reports, policy briefs, hopefully not only with our members, but also with our allies from civil society and other relevant spaces. We will be definitely sharing data with everyone on the situation in Myanmar. And most importantly, we will serve as mentors and also as trainers for emerging champions of human rights, emerging champions of democratization in Myanmar and human rights in Southeast Asia and beyond. So please watch out for that. We have lined up a number of activities in the coming months. We are now joined by 3 prominent experts on the field of human rights, democratization, and conflict transformation. We have with us 3. Unfortunately, our colleague from the Philippines could not make it due to a persisting illness since last night. But we are joined by a 3rd person who I will be introducing in a bit. First, we have Debbie Stoddard, who is a dear friend who has been focused on the thematic priorities of business and human rights, atrocity prevention, and women's leadership. Debbie, who started as a crime reporter, student organizer, academic in Malaysia and Australia, founded ALTSIAN Burma in 1996, which continued to spearhead a range of empowering human rights programs, particularly in Myanmar. Debbie, is very much known for assertive advocacy to push ASEAN to abide by human rights and democracy norms. So we're very happy to have Debbie with us. Our second esteemed speaker, who I consider as my mentor, Dr. Sripapa Petmisi, is a prominent human rights personality in Southeast Asia, and all of the world. She's currently a senior researcher at the Faculty of Law at Chulalongkorn University. Her expertise includes migration, including refugees, statelessness, and citizenship. Definitely ASEAN studies, and ASEAN and Southeast Asia studies, and human rights, international relations. She previously taught at the Institute of Human Rights and Peace Studies at Mahidol University. She was awarded the honorary doctorate by the University of Oslo, and has founded also the Pro Rights Foundation, which also continues to work on various human rights issues. Most importantly, Dr. Sripapa Petmisi was the first Thai representative to the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. Lastly, we have Susan Mo Cho, who is a faculty member at Ubon Ratchathani University. We believe that she has been working closely on the issue of migration and human rights. We also learned more recently that she has been working on the current conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. And we're very, very happy to have Susan Mo Cho join with us. Susan originally hails from Myanmar. We will be providing around 12 to 15 minutes to each of our speakers, and we will open the floor for any questions or comments. We will start with Debbie. Please. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you to our hosts and organizers, and thank you, Joel. I have a PowerPoint to share, and yes. So, firstly, for people who have been concerned about building peace in Burma, Myanmar, especially since the failed coup that was launched in February 2021 saw a huge surge in war crimes and crimes against humanity happening in the country, hoping that somehow where can we find the off-ramp? Where can we take things back onto the path to peace? The hope was that an election organized by the military junta would make the difference. But I think we need a reality check. Firstly, the latest news is that the military junta has actually set December 28th as the date for the first round of voting. It is very significant to note that they tried to start the whole voting process during the end of year Christmas break, which is where most of countries, for example, Canada, that has actually been quite vocal in its concern over human rights, democracy, and peace in Burma. That's smack in the middle of Christmas and end of year, New Year holiday. So we could see that the junta is gambling. They do not expect their election to be free or fair in any form, and they're hoping that most of the Western world, as well as many other parts of Asia, will not be able to pay attention to what goes down when the voting starts. But when we are sorry to bombard, but to confuse you with such a number heavy slide. But I think I would like to draw your attention to the second last line. 9.28% is the number of seats won by the parties approved by the junta to run in this election. What the junta has done is essentially outlawed parties that won over 90% of the seats in the last multi-party election in 2020. So it was this precisely the fact that the juntas, the military party didn't couldn't win, lost the election by a landslide, that this coup was held. And so now we can see it's not actually an off ramp to um, an off ramp out of the mess that Myanmar has been put in. It's actually going to harden the situation further, because more than the parties that won more than 90% of the seats, the NLD and the ethnic political parties that ran in the 2020 election, have been outlawed or prevented from participating this year. Next. Um, so, what we have seen disturbingly is that the junta's sham election, the preparation has already intensified conflict and regional instability. We did see our numbers of the conflict numbers going up from an average of 800 uh, incidents of military clashes and attacks on civilians a month. So 800 cases a month to now an average of over 1,000 a month. And what we also saw is an intensification of aerial attacks, airstrikes, drone attacks, and paramotor attacks. So the military's latest strategy is to actually invest in low-tech paramotors, which are low-flying two-person aircraft. Basically, it looks like a lawnmower with wings, which you can actually buy on Alibaba. And these are being used by the military to drop bombs on civilian targets. While these aircraft are low flying and have a limited distance that they can fly, the problem is that because they're low flying, they're actually more accurate and they appear to kill more people. Um, Earlier this year, the military junta actually told the so-called legal political parties, the parties that they're allowed to register, to carry weapons. So they're actually encouraging and emphasizing the need for the pro-junta political parties allowed to join the election to carry weapons to defend themselves against attacks by the resistance. Now, the problem with this is that many of these pro or military junta aligned parties themselves are also militias who already are quite violent. So we're not likely to see a cessation or reduction in violence. We've also seen that on July the 31st, the military junta changed its name. They lifted the state of emergency that they called in February 2021 and have been extending. They finally ended the state of emergency, changed the name of the junta, but they also imposed martial law on 63 townships, which are all the resistance controlled areas. And we saw that by doing that, there's been a mass disenfranchisement of ethnic voters. So anyone who is concerned about peace will say, well, in order to reduce conflict, we need an inclusive political solution. But having a sham election, which actually excludes the ethnic voters and ethnic parties, is actually already a bad sign. And there is the continued exclusion of Rohingya. Actually, as a preparation for this election, the junta launched a so-called census process. And what they acknowledged was 51,300,000 people population. And what we have seen is that based on the World Bank estimates and based on the average growth rate, annual population growth rate in Burma, Myanmar, this so-called census has actually rendered up to 4.3 million people missing. So we don't know where that 4.3 million people are. and how many of them, and obviously the majority of them are not acknowledged or allowed to, are actually invisible and missing from these so-called elections. Um, there was also a new law brought in to permit foreign security firms to operate. And this was basically to allow China and junta joint ventures to form private security companies. They have already, one of the companies has already launched, um, helped the junta launch drone strikes against the Arakan army in Arakan state. So we can see that um, uh, there is a very significant threat that not only the military, but also Chinese troops under the guise of private security firms may be allowed to help suppress resistance to the junta in the lead up, during, and immediately after the sham election. For us, the greatest problem is that uh, a sham parliament formed by a sham election will then be endorsing the junta's atrocity crimes, and then they will say that this is a civilian government that has authorized to continue committing these atrocities. The next slide, please. So here we can see on the 31st of July, the state of emergency was lifted. The State Administrative Council, SAC, which was the name of the junta when it launched the coup, was renamed the State Security and Peace Commission, SSPC, operating as an interim government. And I wanted to draw your attention to the map on the left. This is the orange zones are the zones constituting the townships where martial law was imposed by the junta. The map on the right is actually the showing the intensity of the civilian fatalities from aerial attacks as of the 30th of June this year. And you will see that the martial law map disturbingly corresponds with the places of greatest civilian fatality to aerial attack. So we totally expect that the attacks and the violence against civilians in these martial law zones, that there will be more aerial attacks and artillery attacks on these areas. So, so this is showing us that preparation and conduct of these sham elections is actually increasing conflict, not reducing it. As of 8th of August, there were 56,969 incidents of armed clashes and attacks against civilians since February 2021. And conservatively, 3.3 million people have been displaced. Next. So what also happened just before the junta transformed itself from the SAC to the SSPC was that it enacted several laws and amendments. One of the amendments was an amendment to the junta's political parties registration law that will dissolve political parties accused of election fraud or, quote, unlawful conduct. This effectively bans the NLD from re-registering and a number of other parties from re-registering because the junta accused them of electoral fraud in 2021, excuse me. Now, and this goes back to the hope that somehow this sham election, while being unfree, unfair, and directly oppressive, could form the same function, could be the small opening of the door that was done by the 2010 sham election, where in 2010 there was a sham election where the NLD was not able to participate, and a number of other ethnic political parties were not able to participate. But then a round of by-elections in 2012 allowed the NLD to participate, and they entered parliament that way. And eventually in 2015, they won by a landslide and formed government. So anyone who fantasizes about that happening will now have to realize that the military learned from their 2010 mistake, and they are doing everything to ensure that the NLD does not come back in any shape or form. Um, the other law, a new law, was actually enacted by the junta called the Law on the Prevention of Disruption and Interference with Elections. Now, this basically imposes 3 to 7 years jail for organizing against, protesting, or publishing criticism of the sham election. 3 years to life imprisonment for disturbing, obstructing, or threatening candidates, and 3 years to life in prison for intimidating, threatening, or physically harming voters, polling staff, or election commission members, and up to and the death penalty. So you can this election law can impose the death penalty if any of the disturbances or criticisms of anti-election activities considered election interference it leads to or is linked to a death. So it can be sarcastic and say that this junta loves democracy and the electoral process so much that they're willing to kill for it. And this is why, when we talk about this so-called transition from the SAC to the SSPC, the State Security and Peace Commission, you can already see from the laws that they've brought in, from the way they are composed, their composition, it's actually a hardening, not a softening of the military regime. And this is a bad sign, because usually regimes would try to soften their image and be a little bit more open as they go into an election, if you are actually intending for that election to be an off-ramp to the political and the political problems and the armed conflict besieging that country. So this is a reverse. In fact, in the SSPC, only one member is a civilian. The other members of the State Security and Peace Commission are either serving or retired military. Now, this is consistent with Min Aung Hlaing, the junta coup leader, his efforts to harden his junta. When it was known as the SAC, the State Administrative Council, between February 2021 and July 2025, this SAC saw 33 individuals serving as council members during its life, and 3 generals. Out of those 33, 3 generals and 14 civilian members were removed. So they were gradually removing these members. Next. So these are the members of the SSPC, the State Security Peace Council. And you can see the names in yellow: Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, the chair, Lieutenant General So Win, vice chair, and so on. The names in yellow are all active serving military. So they're all senior general, lieutenant general, and general rank. The names in white. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are serving members of the military. 2, the names in white, Neo Saw, the Prime Minister, and Aung Lin Doi, a member, they are both former generals. So the names in white are actually retired military. So you can see out of this 10-person junta, the new look junta, only one, Tan Sui, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, is not serving military. So what are our options? I'm sorry if I've taken up so much time. Firstly, if we are really serious about conflict reduction, we cannot imagine or hope naively that somehow this sham election is going to uh, help the peace agenda. No, it's not. We should still keep our eye on the prize and focus on conflict reduction by depriving the junta, the biggest perpetrator of crimes, the means to wage war, weapons, equipment, aviation fuel, revenue, all of those means to actually continue arming itself. We need to halt deportations to Myanmar. What we're seeing is that Thailand has actively been cooperating in deporting people back to Myanmar, and they are subsequently forcibly conscripted. In July, the Ranong immigration authorities in southern Thailand handed over 162 so called illegal immigrants to the junta. Out of the 162, 150 were immediately sent to military training against their will. So, if we continue to feed the forced conscription process, we are actually prolonging the conflict. We do need to step up the stakes. We need to give greater recognition to the NUG and other political representatives instead of the military junta. And we need, I mean, some of the states, some of governments have been informally engaging with the NUG and the ethnic groups. I think it's time to formalize that. But also, we need to build ground for the future. In the midst of all this violence, there are very, very committed people, especially youth and women, working to build the ground for political, social, and economic transformation. And I'm sorry for the self promotion, but I'm very proud of the inclusive federal economic policy, where 73% of participants were aged 35 and younger, and where 61% of participants were women. Now, these 31 organizations, including people operating in active conflict zones, have formed a framework of 437 economic policies across 8 sectors. And we're ready to launch it next week. In the meantime, we have to understand that the areas under many of the areas under martial law by the military junta are actually areas of resistance control, where many federal units have already set up civilian based civil administrations and their own law enforcement and also jail system in order to promote and uphold the rule of law despite being under constant attack by the military. So, the situation looks bad, but we also have to recognize that there's a lot of work being done on the ground by very committed people, including women and youth, doing amazing work, and still having their eye on the future about what they want their country to be in the future, an inclusive federal system which is based on human rights and equality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie, for yet again a very comprehensive update and also sharing of your insights and wisdom on the situation on the ground in Myanmar. You highlighted that there's an ongoing attempt, although a failed one, to normalize heightened militarization in Myanmar, where the government is increasingly being used as a tool against the people. That since day one. This militarized governance employs not only brute force, but also advanced technologies for surveillance and repression, intensifying control over the population. Um, the sham elections held by the regime serve as an attempt to legitimize what is essentially also a sham democracy, which had hardened really, again, an attempt to harden the rule of the military junta. The facade of this electoral, quote unquote, electoral process masked the authoritarian nature, attempts also to mask the authoritarian nature of the junta rule. But you also mentioned in the end that that there is work being done, particularly on the ground. And I think we need, as CRRIC, as CRRIC, as also as members of the Solidarity Movement, have to very much be aware and be ready to support what is happening. With what's happening all over the world, we shouldn't forget what is happening in Myanmar. There are things, good things happening on the ground, and these are the first people in the front lines that are um, in harm's way. Thank you again, Debbie. Please stay with us. We will be asking for questions from our colleagues over social media. Um, and again, I will now pass it on to Dr. Sripapa Petmisi, who will also share a very important insight on one of the most vulnerable people affected by this illegitimate occupation by the military junta. Dr. Sripapa, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Joel. And I would like to thank co-organizers for having me on the panel. I also would like to thank Debbie for actually laying down a very solid foundation to what has been happening in Myanmar since the coup d'etat. And what I plan to address is would be a kind of continuation, of what Debbie has already um, mentioned, which means that I will not be repeating anything that Debbie has already shared with us. So I'll be focusing on three things. One is actually voices from the crowd, based on my two research projects that I have been doing so far. One of which was actually supported by IDRC Canada, and another one by AIPG, the Outreach Institute for the Prevention of Mass Atrocities and Genocide, based in USA. And actually, I'm preparing a paper focusing on refugees, especially from neighboring countries. So the first one is actually listening to their voices based on my interview. And the second one I would be looking at the response of ASEAN. And I think that what people keep on asking me to look at how ASEAN responds and whether their responses have been effective or ineffective. And the third one would be actually the roles of the ASEAN Human Rights Mechanism. As you have mentioned, where I was sitting as the first Thai Asia rep, and I have been still engaging with them until now, especially under Malaysian chairmanship. So the first one was voices from those affected by the coup d'etat. I was since the past 2 years, I was interviewing, refugees and migrants from Myanmar, mostly females and children. And actually, the latest interview that I conducted was 3 weeks ago, and it was with the two novices who are currently in Chiang Mai. You just imagine, at least in Chiang Mai, thousands of them are there as novices, fleeing from the policy of conscription. Both novices that I interviewed 3 weeks ago, they both actually said exactly the same thing. They said that if we are, when we were in Myanmar, it would be very difficult for us to survive. In Thailand, we survive without the future, and that's what they said. Why they say so? Because most of them having seen their father and actually not only their brothers, their siblings, but also sisters being conscripted not only by military junta, but also by ethnic groups as well. So this is something that I think I need to emphasize, that although we believe that the military junta come up with the conscription policy, but the policy has been actually applied by ethnic groups as well. Then we have to recognize that. One of the point that they said, as long as you can carry guns, they will conscript you. So the lowest age of the children conscripted or being conscripted by the ethnic groups and military junta uh, is as low as 8 years old. As I said, as long as someone can carry guns, you can be conscripted. And that was actually that were the voices of children that I interviewed just 3 weeks ago. You know, some more interviews that I've made for my research projects were with refugees. I call them refugees, although Thailand does not recognize them as refugees. Um, in Mesot, of course, they have been in hiding. One of them is a couple. The lady was actually an accountant at the five-star hotel based in Yangon, and her husband was actually immigration officer. They both, managed to flee to Mesot, the district along the Thai-Myanmar border. In Thailand, as I said, they survive without the future, exactly the same as children, because rather than because they enter into the Thai territory without any legal document with a young baby. Fortunately or unfortunately, um, then what they have been doing so far, and I heard that they actually try to return to Myanmar because of, as I said, no future in Thailand. Um, they have been trying to survive first with their savings, but once their saving has gone, has finished, then they have to start working, of course, illegally. And what kind of work they have been doing is actually, as White House cleaning. You just imagine, an accountant and immigration officer, but both, were forced to do something that they didn't have to do, in their own country. And I think this is such a loss of human resources. And this loss is not actually limited to the couple and other people that I have already interviewed. But Myanmar, after 2021 coup d'etat, they have lost 80, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, Debbie, 80% of the human resources, especially faculty members in the universities. Many of my friends and my former students, they were removed from their positions. Those who remain in Myanmar got promoted, but those who, fled from Myanmar, as I said, their positions were removed. Not only their positions were removed, their passport were revoked, and of course, they got arrest warrant. So they have been in Thailand in hiding, uh, uh, and actually most of them could not find the work. Although some of them uh, um, actually could manage to go to the third country, uh, but their life in the third country, especially USA, is becoming more and more difficult under Trump administration. So you just imagine, impacts, and I just talk on about one angle, which is about human resources from Myanmar. So my next point is actually how ASEAN responds, to humanitarian and human rights crisis. I saw these two crises as parallel crises, actually impacting one another. ASEAN respond to 2021 Myanmar coup, in my eyes, has been largely ineffective. Primarily, of course, as we all know, and I guess, although I don't need to repeat, but I guess I will have to say the adherence to the principle of ASEAN Way. What constitutes the ASEAN Ways? It includes the principles of non-interference and consensus-based decision making, which actually hinder the progress on of its 5-point consensus. I think all of you, what constitute 5-point consensus, but for the sake of our listener and watchers, I just want to recall what constitute 5-point consensus that ASEAN has adopted, and actually Myanmar junta has already accepted. Includes a plan for resolving the crisis through cessation of violence. The second one actually allowing humanitarian assistance. The third one, inclusive dialogue. Just the first three of them. You can see that it's already ASEAN has failed to do so, to actually to keep or to to actually if but I think the term convinced Myanmar is a bit too weak, but even the term impose has not been done, although ASEAN has actually applied some measures in order to ensure that Myanmar junta would be adhering to the 5-point consensus by, for example, not allowing those with political positions to participate in many ASEAN meetings. But from time to time, I don't know if it was by accident or by intention, to invite some with political positions to join ASEAN meeting. Although we recognize that they have to keep on working with, for example, Myanmar foreign ministers for the sake of coordination. That I think is quite well understood. But in any case, even with that kind of measures, it doesn't really make anything change from Myanmar side. And as Debbie has already mentioned, despite many problems, many issues, Myanmar is still trying and actually, I think I use the term trying, but that might be the term which is very light. At least imposing, that would be the right term, imposing the elections, by the end of the year. And as Debbie has already described, I don't think we could be called even a facade of democracy, because what has been happening and doing by Myanmar junta is not a democracy, despite elections that they are planning, to organize. Because when you come up with the laws imposing death penalty, how could you call it a democracy? Even it's an election, and it would not be called a general elections, because in general elections it means that all voters will be participating in elections. But when some groups of persons or people were excluded since the very beginning from election. So it's not a general elections that the junta is preparing to do. My next point, I would like to keep my time as much as possible. Next point is actually what is the roles of ASEAN human rights mechanism, especially the ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights. I can see that they have been trying to do something, but because of the lack of the complete lack of unity, among the 10 members of the. I think during the past 2 years, they got an observer from Timor-Leste, preparing Timor-Leste for a full member for full membership of ASEAN. Under Lao chairmanship, the Laotian, chair was actually appointed what they call a special envoy, and the so-called special envoy has visited um, and talked to Myanmar junta, I think quite a few times, but nothing happened. We have not heard that much, about what was done by or what were done by special envoy from Lao PDR. Under Malaysian chairmanship, I can see that actually the issue of Myanmar has been actually part of the Malaysian policy, including Malaysian representative who happened to be one of my PhD students, Edmund Bond. Edmund has been trying to do his best, but then because of as I said, the lack of unity within not only ASEAN but also within Asia, we could actually trace back to 2021 in the sense that the Asia could never deliver any statement as an institution, but they issue some statements from time to time, but signed mainly by the 4 representatives rather than by 10 representatives. And the 4 representatives and this had been our usual suspect in the sense that you have Thailand, you have Malaysia, you have Indonesia. From time to time, you got Philippines, but Singapore has been quite active, in the previous Singapore representative, but not the current one. So lack of unity, lack of power from Asia itself, and from ASEAN perspective, the term accountability has not been used by ASEAN, and I think that they would agree with me. They would agree with me. So a complete lack of accountability, or the concept of accountability within ASEAN, doesn't lead to any resolution to the problem within Myanmar. So I would like to end, with this very short observation. But lack of accountability, upholding to ASEAN way, ASEAN principles based on non-interference in internal affairs, despite the fact that whatever happened in our neighboring countries could not be considered as internal affairs, but it's still there. So, and lack of unity actually leads ASEAN to very ineffective response to Myanmar crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sipapa, or call Ajahn Sipapa, for really providing us not only with the regional analysis and criticism of the Myanmar crisis, but also you have recounted heart-wrenching narratives involving vulnerable rights holders fully impacted by the Myanmar junta, particularly children. And you gave us really an insight of children who escaped forced conscription by the military and also by ethnic groups, citing really the insistence on domination as infringement of human rights that also denies their dignity. You mentioned narratives that have exposed lifelong traumas and dehumanizing impact on these children who have escaped from such consequences. Dr. Sri Papa was also I mentioned a while ago, the first Thai representative to the ICHAR, had provided us with an examination of the ASEAN 5-point consensus, which is rendered weak and useless to address the Myanmar crisis, and has largely been ineffective. the military junta's ongoing hostility has diminished its ability to achieve progress and peace and peace and progress. And I think what the last point that Dr. Srivapad raised about accountability, particularly at the regional level, is very much a telling sign of things to come. Without accountability, without really the ability of members who could negotiate in these formal spaces, who can come out with concrete action on the situation in Myanmar, then nothing will really turn into fruition in terms of peace and lasting democracy in the country and all of the region as well. Thank you again, Ajahn Papa, for giving us your insights and also your expertise on this matter. Finally, we are giving the space to Susan Mocho, who is now joining us from the eastern part of Thailand. Susan, are you still with us?
Yes. Good
Thank you
morning,
again.
everyone.
My sincerest thanks for taking on this very, very important but also difficult task of speaking on behalf of our audiences and allies. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I am Susan. I am originally from Myanmar. Now I'm based in Thailand, and I'm a lecturer at the Faculty of Political Science, Ubon Ratchathani University. And thanks for having me here, even though I'm the last minute one, that I'm really an honor to be here. I'm currently conducting a research about Laos and Thailand and exploring how Laotians migrant women workers and their family dynamic and migration related changes in the community. So for this discussion right now, I would like to focus mainly on the identity of Myanmar migrant workers and also a bit briefly on the role of women, especially in humanitarian aid and activism work. So, and also Ajahn Siripapa and Debbie have covered many important key things. So I just would like to highlight on identity and migrant women and briefly on their role in the activism work. So, drawing on my research about Myanmar migrant workers that I conducted around 2021 and 22 in Thailand, I realized that Myanmar migrant workers, they hold many hidden identities. They're not just migrant workers. They are mothers, they are also wives, they are also daughters, they have their left behind family members and children at home. And so when it comes to the political crisis they face, even though they are in Thailand, they do concern about their well-being and the safety of their family member. So they face emotional and their psychological distress. However, regardless of their challenging emotion and feeling, they are also very like active players. Like they're stay actively promoting and they're also building strong transnational ties with Myanmar. One significant contribution will be their remittances. So their remittances are not just to solve the economic situation of their family members or to meet the needs of family members. Their remittances are key, especially in for the ongoing activism work and also emergency needs in the time of crisis. So that one thing that I would like to highlight. And when we look at the women in Myanmar, they are staying moving forward. They are stay present forward. So I would say they are like the lanterns in the tunnel. So they carry going on with courage and things like that. So they ran what they do for the humanitarian works and thing is they ran their school in the displacement camp and they're trying to provide the healthcare services in the conflicted area and also they keep their local economy alive and they are trying their best. So when conflict gets severe, when the bombing and things conflict gets severe, they are still trying to find a way to continue education. So like they provide underground classroom, they provide community hubs and also family-led discussion and education. So basically, their efforts are not just about education, it's beyond education. Their efforts are about to preserve hope and the optimism and the capacity to emerging a future beyond fear. So that's what they are doing, their efforts. So regardless of the challenges and difficulties, the Myanmar women are still shaping their future with their heart, with their courage, and a commitment to their communities. So that's the thing that I would like to highlight for this session today. So keep it simple and short everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. Joel, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Susan. And I know that there's so much more to this to get your insights from. And I believe the opening session will give us more, will provide you with more opportunity to speak. And I'm very happy to have invited Susan. No, instead of rendering the last seat empty, we needed a voice, particularly from Myanmar, and also sort of a gendered insight, really, of what is happening. We may call it resilience, but is it something that really will sustain not just the economy, but also the political and the social fabric of Myanmar? And I think this is from a women's perspective, which you have mentioned have intersectional identities, and have also, and this is echoing what Baby had mentioned, which is echoing really a resistance from below, and how can we support and how we can make sure that we take care of these people and make sure that they don't get affected by really the harm that the sophisticated and systematic oppression that is being taken by this illegitimate junta. Thank you so much, Susan. We'll get more from you. I'll now give the floor back to Dr. Kauser for our opening session.
Thank you. Question and answer. Yeah. So, Joel, thank you so much. Folks, we are watching our clock. So just to be conscious about total time frame, let me tweak the sequence a little bit here and bring our advisor and our core members and Mr. Anil to the discussion first, and then we'll, if we have still time, then we'll switch to our predetermined questions that Joel and I both developed. David, you can go ahead. Floor is yours, and then Ernest, you can jump in, and followed by Anil. David.
Yeah, just very quickly, I wanted to express appreciation for the insights that are coming from your region. I think it's incredibly important to get the kinds of research-based truth that is necessary for even Smart Settle to do its work there properly. So my purpose here is to thank you very, very much. And I do highlight the observation that accountability is an issue. I, of course, with my background as a lawyer and in the legislative and executive branch of the government, think back to the origins of Myanmar and their initial commitment to be part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So if there's to be accountability, it always seems to me that is a very good place to start and provide hope, especially to the migrant workers, the women, the children, that there is a foundation of rights and responsibilities, which are the foundation to any enduring fair form of government. And also attached to those are and their foundation is universal values, which led to the creation of the Universal Declaration. And just to bring it up to date, universal values are also exhibited astonishingly in the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So, and another, I think, foundational document that provides hope and a basis for accountability is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and the insights and really profound exposure of the failure of the colonizers who chose racial and religious superiority and all of the absence of morality in what was done. So I think there's I love having institutions, 30 institutions from Southeast Asia who can bring those into the forefront because of your very reason for being. And a foundation is there. And if we can have that understanding at the grassroots in the region, that hope can become a fire and a fire for collaboration, solidarity, and international support for the local movers and shakers who are courageously resisting. So thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Ernest, do you have any questions for our speakers?
Yeah, well, thank you for that very detailed and sobering description of the situation in Myanmar. Bringing peace to that region will be no easy task. Better peace than there is now, which is not very good. And I guess I have one question. It seems like the majority of the population would want something else, something better than what is there right now. Would they welcome a process where we would attempt to engage all of the stakeholders in a peace building process?
Yeah, anyone can take it on. Professor, do you want to, Sri Papa?
Yeah. I think it's a very important question. Of course, I have not been working, especially, on the issues of, elections as deep as Debbie. But I think when we talk about the process, there are a few processes which are going on in the region, and I'm looking, from the regional perspective here rather than national perspective. Although I think that based on my conversations with some ethnic groups, leaders of ethnic groups, they have been they express their worriness about the upcoming, imposing elections, if I may put it that way. The elections that which will be imposed by Myanmar junta. The worriness that they express actually says many things, that any elections which are not considered general, free and fair, would not be and should not be welcome anyway, in my opinion. So just on election, on the 5-point consensus that ASEAN has proposed, and Myanmar junta has already accepted, but nothing happened so far. I think in general, at least at the very beginning, the 5-point consensus will are quite warm welcome. But during the past 5 years, nothing happened much, and people start asking many questions about how efficient or effective of the 5-point consensus, which I already gave the answer. The ASEAN process based on the 5-point consensus, although welcome, but because of its ineffectiveness, then from welcoming, it's actually it changed from welcoming from being questioned, in my opinion, questioning about not only the roles of ASEAN, the roles of Asia, but also, the roles of international community, in actually um, uh, solving or even proposing the resolution to the Myanmar crisis. This is my very quick answer to your question.
Debbie, do you want to jump in to answer Ernest's question with regards to stakeholders coming in and accepting the option of alternate?
Yes, there was that one of the first things that various ASEAN stakeholders did, the leaders did, was why don't we just bring people to the table and let them talk it out, and all sides can compromise, and then something good will happen. There's a couple of things that happen in that dynamic. Firstly, ASEAN felt frustrated because they only wanted one representative from the resistance. So they wanted a figurehead who can negotiate. But the history of the country is such that you cannot actually claim to have one unilateral leader for the country, given the complexity of the past, where different ethnic groups had their political aspirations crushed. Even the so-called peace process actually featured more atrocity crimes against civilians, and actually a willful disregard for civilian protection. So one thing is that if we are going to have a discussion or peace process, there has to be safe spaces for all the different stakeholders, especially on the resistance side, to strengthen their understanding and their agreements. Secondly, the issue is of accountability. For too long, ASEAN has been allergic to justice and accountability. They really have a very serious allergy. I don't know what kind of antihistamine we can use, but the reality of the situation is that because of their deliberate stifling of the calls for accountability, it's actually created an enabling environment for worse impunity to happen, both from the junta but also amongst the resistance forces. We cannot deny that, as Ajahn Sri Papa noted. But the biggest perpetrator systematically across the board has been the junta. And in fact, the ASEAN model was this whole thing of, oh, let's do some power sharing, let the militaries have its dominance in the political affairs. Gradually, things will change. And pushing the NLD and Aung San Suu Kyi into a power share, essentially not really a power sharing arrangement, because when it came to security matters and budgetary matters, they didn't have much power. That's why the military was able to essentially triple its budget between 2010 and 2021. So we do have to understand that the mood of the resistance, but also of the population, who, including people who were more close to the military in the past, is that we cannot tolerate to have any of these guys in government. If we're looking at vetting, part of the transitional justice arrangement, the reform arrangement, you cannot allow the perpetrators of mass atrocities to be at the table. They should be taken to the court. They shouldn't be there. So I think one of the big strategies is to actually remove the top layer of the junta, the ones most responsibility for the atrocity crimes, and then negotiate with the less hardline people. But in that respect, also, we need to understand that Min Aung Hlaing, the junta leader, has systematically removed anyone who is considered a moderate from the junta. So we do need to recognize the complexity, but also understand the first step is to actually disable the junta. Do not allow revenue or weapons or technology to go in their hands. That's the only way you can strengthen the possibility of an equal dialogue. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Very interesting. Debbie, I totally agree with you, how to really, in terms of challenges of bringing stakeholders on the table. Going back to Susan. Susan, you are from Myanmar, and I'm sure you lived a very long time in the country. So, what is your take on it? I mean, you can build up on Debbie's comments, and we are curious to know uh, what is the best approach to really think about multi-party, peace building activities or exercises. Go ahead.
Peace building discussion is not new in Myanmar. Like for in the name of like peace building, in the name of for the development, they have been doing like a roundtable discussion and doing this that, and we know that what happened next, and it has been repeating. It has been like a cycle happening again. So I would focus in that matter how, like about the how that it's going to facilitate about the peace discussion or about the stakeholder coming together and discussing how it will be and whom should be part of that discussion, who is deciding and who is determining, and also like we need to I feel like we need to identify who will be part of it, who determine, and the how to say the the yeah the part that who will be take part of it. So it I think it will determine the goal and the produce the agenda of the discussion. That's my opinion, because Debbie has already talked about the transparency and accountability of those discussions. Yeah, thank you.
Again, sorry, Susan, I just need to also understand that, peace conferences, especially Second Panglong Treaty related 2017 conference, we are aware of it. It didn't work out. At that time, NLD was in power, and so forth. So, according to you, what is the best method now? Remember, Debbie is talking about removing the top tiers perpetrators for decades of violence. How do you remove them actually? And without the Myanmar military, what kind of peace negotiation with who you're going to talk about?
I wouldn't say there is one and best solution. There is no such thing like that. There is no one fit for all solution, or this one is that would be the best suit for all, or discard this one, or this remove this one. It will be quite challenging and it won't be sustainable. What I can say is that removing one party or one interest or one interest of a one party, removing this, we cannot build like sustainable peace building. So it means you have to really consider every aspect, all the aspect of the party interest. That also include that what Debbie has said. So that's what my opinion. There is no one fit for all. You really need to consider every aspect for the sustainability of the peace building. So yeah, that's my take on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Folks, we are, again, we are just to be conscious about time, and our panelists are here with us for over an hour now. I'll just would like to close our session today, but I do have one really pressing question that I need your opinion on. This is about a little bit of geopolitics, and I will throw this question to the floor so that all of you might try to say something, and that might be very useful for us in this project. The question is here like this. Very recently, we have come to know United States has lifted sanction on three military companies or military associated companies in Myanmar through active lobbying, etc. And Myanmar government slash junta has portrayed that they are moving towards positive direction of election, etc. So, what is the implication of this? Coupled with the latest photo op in Beijing, the Myanmar general along with Mr. Putin and especially Xi Jinping. So Chinese role, because if I hear you correctly, you are advocating sanctions, more sanctions, and stopping supplies, etc. But how is it going to work out? Given this very complex geopolitical dimension, on the one side the US, on the other side China, and we all know China is playing multiple role in this conflict, on the one hand supporting the ethnic armed organizations, and on the other hand supporting the junta. So here is the broad question feel free to jump in. Professor Sipaha, do you want to talk first?
Um, Thank you, Kozo, for very important question, which I think, in my opinion, merit another webinar. About the complexity of geopolitics.
If you
In
if you are willing to come, Professor, I will definitely organize another one.
because it is a very big question, and I think Debbie would agree with me as well. The roles of superpower and middle powers. In the region and outside the region. Actually, I think um, uh, I noticed that you have been following up the situation in the region quite closely, and actually the appearance, of the uh, junta, in the latest meeting in Beijing, says something. And I think it says very strongly, and it suggests, how much, China is actually how much the Chinese government is close to the Myanmar junta. But I think it doesn't stop there. Actually, it says, that there are many support economically, militarily, especially from economic and military points of view. Not much development, in my opinion, because when we talk about development, it means that people should benefit from the so-called from that development, but it doesn't happen because those who benefit from any assistance from or investment from China are actually mostly Chinese and the military junta. This is nothing to do with development, but of course, economic support to junta and military support to junta. My second point is actually about what about the roles of other countries? The fact that the Trump administration has lifted the sanction against the three companies actually say something. Actually, I'm very confused, with Trump, which I should not be in many ways because, as we know, we would never understand what Trump has been doing so far. And as I say, it's not hard to understand, but it's hard to understand in some way. Since we I think it's whether or not it's strategic. In my opinion, it's not very strategic. Yeah, because by trying to do something in Myanmar, when I said by trying to do something in Myanmar, uh, for the benefit mainly of military junta, Trump is now making things more difficult, to solve, in my opinion. And the dynamics of powers within the region doesn't benefit the Myanmar people in any way.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Debbie,
my short analysis. Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. Debbie, yeah.
I think the removal of sanctions on three sanctioned individuals doesn't negate the fact that across the world, whether it's Canada, EU, Australia, and the US, there's still a raft of sanctions that still apply. The issue is whether ASEAN and the regional community has the guts to support a UN Security Council resolution for a global arms embargo. Because the moment you allow money to go into Burma, Myanmar, it is grabbed by the junta and it's not used for humanitarian reasons or even basic governance. It's used to get more weapons to attack civilians. It's used to strengthen the apparatus of oppressing the population. This is why there's been a huge capital flight from the country, and even civil servants are running away from the country. Even those who did not join the civil disobedience movement are now wanting to leave the country. Last month, the military junta imposed a rule that civil servants, wives, and children are required to obtain military permission in order to travel out of the country. That's how bad the situation is. But we are from Asia, and I think this will resonate with you, Dr. Kauza Ahmed, that the price of rice, good quality rice has and also low quality rice in Myanmar has risen by 400% within 4 years. And that is partly also because the military was even bombing rice fields and attacking the agriculture, the communities that were actually growing the food to feed the nation. So I think we do need to understand in many of these ethnic and rural areas that have become targets of military violence, it has not just affected people who were displaced, but it actually affected the agriculture and manufacturing base of the country. So China is trying to make hay while the sun shines, and the sun is shining while Donald Trump is pursuing a policy based on ego rather than national and global interests. But having said that, even China understands that the situation is not sustainable, and there is eventually a line which how much can they afford to prop up a regime when they're already propping up North Korea. So we are living in a world of finite resources and finite patience. So eventually, we cannot just say it's because of China we can't do anything. We can do so much, and we cannot fail the people of Burma, because the more resources that go to this military regime is the more refugees we have from Burma. That's the reality of the situation. If we don't care about people in Burma, we need to also at least care about regional human security. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Susan, your comments about the geopolitics, and what do you think is going to happen with Myanmar as a country in the future?
Okay. As a researcher working on the migration, so I would like to give my insight a bit from the migration perspective. So we all know that our Myanmar people, we are on the move, especially after the crisis. We are all around the world. We are spreading across. So the issue that we face right now, the political or the economic and stability, all the issue, they are not confined to Myanmar anymore. So I feel like there will be a lot of negotiation and a lot of a lot of negotiation, a lot of things that we have to address as a regional country. So that's what I see. Like, so many negotiation needs to be done, so many discussion need to be done as a region for that matter. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anil, I have not gone back to you. Do you have any questions? I mean, we are just about to close the session. Anil. Yeah, just unmute.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
All I want to say is this. Okay, so I don't know whether you all know the background. Ernest, David, Kawaz, and I are working on a potential Rotary Global Grant project on peace building in Myanmar, using Ernest's platform on Smart Settle, right? The three of you have been incredibly helpful in showcasing and highlighting why Myanmar and why peace building in Myanmar and why Smart Settle and this project can be really effective, right? I haven't had this much of in-depth on this aspect until today. And we can clearly, I want to be able to take this back with Ernest and the team and crystallize some of the points that you all have highlighted, which is very essential to our Global Grant project. So I just want to say thank you so much. And Joel, the introduction to Joel has just put me on to connecting with him. I'm going to have him come on board on the 22nd of September. 21st of September is the UN International Peace Day.
Correct.
And we are having a dialogue in the evening on peace building and educating youth. Right, and I've just asked Joel to come speak on that in that session. So, an incredible morning. Thank you so very much, all of you.
Thank you,
Dr. Kauser. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. We're very happy to collaborate. The smart technology that was mentioned, maybe for the purpose of our audience, if Mr. Ernest, if Dr. Ernest can give us just a an overview of what that project is about, so
Oh,
that we can also collaborate.
sure. So, Joel, we have to have another
Oh yeah,
possibly
okay.
long session. But however, I do want to suggest that Ernest has actually taken a webinar, delivered a webinar. Just, I think over 2 months. 2 months ago, it is there in the YouTube channel, and I'll send you the link. Particularly, you can see the whole demonstration of the smart settle technologies that Dr. Ernest has developed over the years. And this is something we are it's a very new tool that we are using. So I do a beg apology because it is kind of we are over the time. Okay, folks, thank you so much. Before I end, I would like to thank on behalf of the institute to all our esteemed panelists, and especially Joel for coordinating such a long distance. uh, Dr. Hadi is entering. So let me bring him in. Dr. Hadi, hi.
Hi.
So we are about to close, but you have just entered in a right moment, and I have to really give you some time to say a few words. And we have been with our esteemed panelists for last 1 hour and 30 minutes discussing various aspects. So Hadi is the current chair of the CHRN, the audience, and he is deeply involved in collaboration with us. Dr. Hadi, if you want to say a few words, that will be great. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. I would like to sincerely thank you all, especially for the speakers, moderators, and all participants. Today's discussions, I hope, will shed a light on ongoing struggle facing by the Myanmar, and also democratization process, which is under military junta. And I hope this will highlight the severe human rights and humanitarian challenges that persist despite the junta announcement in upcoming elections. It is clear that the path of democracy in Myanmar remains marked with conflict, repressions, and marginalizations. However, as our speakers have discussed, to the collective knowledge sharing and steadfast advocacy forum like this certainly strengthen our determination and support, especially on voices striving for inclusion, justice, and peace. I would like also thank you, Ms. Debbie Stothart, regarding as highlighted the junta shames elections by excluding ethnic minorities such as Rohingya. And Dr. Sri Papa Pramasri, which I already emphasized, the several loss of human resources and the ineffective ASEAN response due to the disunities and the continued absence of democracy despite plan of elections. I also thank you for Ms. Susan Mo Kiao to showcase the resilience of Myanmar migrant workers, particularly women, who effectively support their families and communities through the education, activisms, and the crisis. And I hope together this insight will form our, from this distinguished speaker, will refer the urgent needs and for genuine democratic solutions, and also stronger regional cooperations to address Myanmar's humanitarian and political issue and also challenges. I would like to thank extend my gratitude, especially for the CRRIC or the CRRIC, Mr. Kausar Ahmad, and also invaluable partnership with the CHRN, so we can have and host this webinar together. So on behalf of the CHRN, I would like to encourage everyone to continue raising awareness and amplifying the call for respect for human rights in Myanmar. Thank you once again for the participations and commitment, and we hope together we can have a more democratic and just future for Myanmar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hadi. Such a wonderful closing remarks, and we appreciate CHRN's active collaboration with us which is super important for this project and our ongoing collaboration. Joel, thank you very much on behalf of the Institute for bringing this together. And we cannot thank you enough, our esteemed panelists, Dr. Sripapa, Debbie, and Susan, who just joined at the last moment. So our deep gratitude. We would like to express at the last that on 26th and 7th September in this month, we are going to have this international summit, and we are expecting a CRRIC representative coming in. And of course, we are also planning to meet you folks on ground at your place somewhere early next year. And we'll definitely look forward having a number of workshops, seminars with you, and that is going to cement our relationships in this collaboration. And with this, let me once again say that we deeply appreciate your time and your insights. And maybe we are going to invite you again because we have not heard enough today. Especially, I would say that Debbie's comments about geopolitics, and Professor Sipapa is very interested about talking the middle power and superpowers role in the region. Thank you, dear audience. Let's end this session tonight. And thank you for being with us for almost an hour and 35 minutes in our clock. Tune with us. We are going to air another webinar on the next Saturday and the following Saturday. Very important webinars with regards to history and Institute of Economics and Peace. So with this, thank you once again. Have a nice rest of the day wherever you are. And support democracy, because without democracy, there will be no peace on earth. Thank you. Bye-bye.